Welcome into the weekend update edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. Pleased to be with you here for the next couple of hours, talking local, regional, and national sports from preps to pros, and looking forward to doing so. Wade, have you been outside today?
Oh yeah, and it is. It's a little warmer than usual, but hey, we'll take it. We're smack
We're
dab
not
in
complaining.
the middle of fall. Yeah, I mean there are worse things to complain about because decent weather this time of the year. But yeah, it's gorgeous. Should be a fun night.
Yeah, week 10, and we might get a little sweaty out there before it's all over with this evening. But again, not complaining. Hey, in the second hour of the show, we will be joined by Joe Rexrode of the Athletics, because there is a top 25 game taking place at First Bank Stadium on the campus of Vanderbilt University tomorrow evening. Is that right? Evening? What time's that kick?
3:15, I believe.
Afternoon. As number 5 Texas comes to town, taking on number 25 Vanderbilt. Going to talk to Joe a little bit about that one and some other games across both the Southeastern Conference and the college football landscape as a whole. So looking forward to getting his insight on some of that. In the next segment, we will be joined by National Football League Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Alan SILLS, friend of the show. He has been on here before. He and I go back a little bit, but looking forward to speaking to him. He just got back from London. I'm not sure how long he was over there. We'll get into that. But, as Chief Medical Officer, he is charged with trying to keep as many of those guys healthy as possible. And we're going to get into the proliferation is the word that I've come up with. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but it seems like we're seeing more Guardian caps on Sunday afternoons than we had. And I want to check with him and see if that is accurate. And if so, what's brought that about. But we're going to talk to Dr. SILLS about that and about, just the general health and the effort to keep those guys in playing condition and to take care of them beyond the game as well. So looking forward to speaking with him. That's not the only NFL talk that we will have on today's show, as I'm not sure what difference it would have made, but there was a face mask call that didn't get called late in that game last night between the Rams and the Vikings that pretty well doomed the Vikings in an eventual 30-20 loss. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Hopefully Mark will be able to call that up, because that's a tough miss, among other NFL topics that we'll be getting to. We'll also we'll get into the grab bag. Wade, did you see the highlights from the Liberty's championship parade yesterday?
I have not seen these. Are they epic?
They're pretty epic. And man, there may not be a better mascot in all of professional sports than Ellie the elephant for the Liberty. She is something special, man. And I guess the Yankees are hoping that parade was kind of a warm-up for their parade. They open World Series play tonight out at LA against the Dodgers. We'll be getting into that a little bit, as well as a coaching staff update from about 4 hours south of here. And like I said, it's a grab bag. There's no telling what we'll reach in and pull out. And in the final segment of the show, we will revisit the Wonder Slate, as Wade and I will try to pick correctly 10 winners against the spread from this weekend's contest. We've been fair to middling here of late.
Yeah, we're hanging in there. We're only a week away from a breakout week, so maybe this will be the weekend that kind of things crack through. We got a couple decent games across the schedule this weekend. Look forward to picking them in that final segment.
Absolutely, should be a lot of fun. So that's what we're looking like here over the next couple of hours. And if the rundown is its typical weekend rundown, we should probably go ahead and get into yesterday's results and this weekend schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Before we get into the Friday rundown, I want to remind you that it is brought to you every Friday by our friend Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb and Associates. The Blue Raider voice also wants to be your trusted advisor in real estate. So contact Chip at 615-542-1915 or visit his website at choosechip.net. That's Chip Walters, proud to support youth sports across Middle Tennessee.
Let's start with a little high school football from last night as Hillsborough defeated Glencliff 34-0. Loretto with a 42-13 win over Waverly. McGavock down Cane Ridge 49-14. East Nashville picked up a 1-0 forfeit victory over Republic, which shut down for the season a few weeks ago. And Overton with a 38-14 win at Stratford. State volleyball tournament action from Thursday. North Point with a 3-0 win over Battleground Academy. Brentwood defeated Maryville 3-0. Brentwood also defeated Farragut 3-1 and Houston 3-2. I don't believe it was in that order, but at any rate, Creekwood with 3-0 win over Anderson County, a 3-2 win over Signal Mountain, and a 3-0 loss to Dyer County. Loretto in 5 games defeated East Robertson 3-2. Summertown with a 3-0 win over South Green, a 3-2 win over Sale Creek. East Robertson with a 3-1 win over Summertown. Let's see. Also, we had Lipscomb Academy defeating Briarcrest Christian 3-0. That was for the Division 2AA state championship. And also Valor Collegiate with a 3-0 win over Dyer County. I believe that covers all of our volleyball action from yesterday.
Taking you guys into girls soccer now as things continue to ramp up, heading into championship weekend here. Knoxville Webb with a 1-0 win versus Harpeth Hall. It was Houston 2, Franklin 0. Merrill Hyde picks up a 1-0 win versus Kingston. Baylor by that same score line over Lipscomb Academy yesterday. Bearden knocks out Page with a 4-0 win. Station Camp defeated Tennessee 2-0. We mentioned Thursday night football. The Rams do come back and do defeat the Vikings. 30-20 was your final on Amazon Prime last night. More on that game as the show continues later throughout the course of the day. Into your high school football schedule for tonight. Friday night games all beginning at 7 o'clock. Webb School is going to travel to BGA. Hunters Lane on the road at Beach this evening. Rockvale visiting Blackman. It'll be Brentwood Academy playing host to Lipscomb Academy tonight. Page is at Centennial. Pope John Paul II is at Chattanooga Christian. Clarksville Northwest is at Clarksville Northeast. Mount Juliet Christian will be at Columbia Academy. West Creek tonight. Good Pasture is at Davidson Academy. West Creek is at Dixon County. Harpeth on the road tonight at East Hickman. Briarcrest Christian is traveling to Innsworth tonight. Ezel Harding will welcome Friendship Christian to town. It'll be Father Ryan playing host to Christian Brothers. Providence Academy is taking on Franklin Christian tonight. Lawrence County hitting the road and going to Franklin County tonight at 7 o'clock. CPA is on the road at Franklin Road Academy. We spoke with Coach Ingle Martin of CPA yesterday. Big showdown there. Springfield at Gallatin tonight. McKenzie and Giles County should be a fun one. You can hear it on Pulaski Citizen Live. Visit PulaskiCitizen.com. Click on Pulaski Citizen Live. Should be a good one at 7 p.m. from the Brickyard. DCA will be traveling to Grace Christian Franklin tonight. Cookville is on the road at Green Hill. Creekwood visiting Greenbrier tonight. Lebanon making the trip over to Hendersonville. And Mount Pleasant will be on the road tonight at Hickman County.
Also, Brentwood is at Independence tonight at 7 o'clock. Joe Burns hosting Houston County. Kenwood goes to Kirkwood. Columbia Central visits Lawson. Summertown is at Lewis County in a big Region 5 2A matchup. Baylor travels up north to Montgomery Bell Academy. Watertown is at Macon County. Liberty Creek goes to Maplewood. Whites Creek is at Marshall County. Providence Christian travels to Middle Tennessee Christian. Franklin is at Mount Juliet. Clarksville Academy travels to Nashville Christian. Oakland hosting Ravenwood. This is a high-powered non-region matchup right here. Westmoreland goes to Portland. Eagleville is at Richland in a big Region 5 1A matchup. Siegel travels across town to Riverdale. Clarksville is at Rossview. Antioch goes to Smyrna. Montgomery Central is at Station Camp. Cheatham County travels to Stewart County. Laverne is at Stewart's Creek. Nolensville comes to Summit. Coverage of that one at mainstreetmurray.com later. Fairview is at Sycamore. Spring Hill goes to Tullahoma. Procone visits White House. White House Heritage hosts East Robertson. And Warren County goes to Wilson Central. Tomorrow, 12 noon, Innovation Academy up in Springfield is hosting Schroeder Padilla Academy. Be sure to check that out.
Yeah, fun out-of-state matchup getting underway at high noon. We opened with volleyball scores earlier. We got another score to tell you guys about. It's Valor Collegiate defeating Dyer County 3-1. Action continuing throughout the course of the day when Nolensville meets Brentwood at 1 p.m. and East Robertson will take on Loretto at 4 p.m. Championship matches over there. Girls soccer action, Westview. These are Saturday games. Saturday kickoff at 1:30 between Westview and Merrill Hyde. And Franklin County, who's in Giles County's district, been to the state 3 straight years, looking for that elusive championship. They'll have a chance versus Station Camp at 4 o'clock tomorrow. College football scores in our coverage area here. Tarleton State will be at Austin Peay tomorrow. That game begins at 3 o'clock. You can see it on ESPN+. We mentioned Texas at Vanderbilt. Should be a fun showdown at 3:15. You can catch it on the SEC network. Cumberland University, that's the Tennessee one, will be on the road at University of the Cumberlands. That's the Kentucky one. Game gets underway at 5 o'clock, and it'll begin with live coverage on WANT-FM 98.9. Make sure you tune in to that Mid-South Rivalry Showdown. It'll be NBA action tonight when the Grizzlies travel to the Rockets. First of a 2-game back-to-back. 7 p.m. You can see it on FanDuel Sports South. Also tomorrow, the Grizzlies home opener at 7 p.m. The Magic will come to town. Same deal. You can see it at 7 p.m. on FanDuel Sports South. Also, MLB action, the World Series tonight and tomorrow night, both games beginning at 7:08 p.m. The Fall Classic between the Yankees at the Dodgers will take place on Fox. We'll have a lot more on that throughout the course of the show and into next week. NHL action, the Preds double duty as well. Tonight, they're at the Blackhawks. Game will begin at 7:30. You can see it on ESPN Plus or Hulu. Tomorrow, they'll be right back at Bridgestone Arena, however, when they host the Blue Jackets. That gets underway at 7 p.m. You can also see it on FanDuel Sports South. And on Sunday, the Titans will travel up to the Motor City. They'll take on the Lions. Good luck. It'll be a noon kickoff. Coverage can be found on Fox this weekend, as well as Titans Radio. And again, the Titans at the Lions gets underway at noon. That concludes our weekend schedule. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our Friday rundown.
Top story brought to you, as always, by the fine folks over at Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And actually, it's kind of top stories, plural, but both coming from the NBA, the association, as Klay Thompson did not take long to make his presence felt with the Dallas Mavericks. The former Golden State Warrior, Robin to Steph Curry's Batman, had a record performance for the Mavericks, knocking down 6 threes on the way to a 22.7 rebound performance in their 120-109 win over San Antonio. Those 6 threes were a record for a Mavericks player in his franchise debut. I don't think anybody ever doubted Klay Thompson's ability to shoot the rock.
Well, when we saw him go out, what was it, 1 of 17 in his last game ever as a Warrior? I was okay. I think me and a lot of folks were definitely thinking, man, he might officially be done. And joke was on us last night because he comes out. He looks great in that new offense. I didn't get to watch this game live, did catch some of the clips, though. And they're playing with pace a little more, which is kind of what we had grown accustomed to seeing the Warriors kind of do at times. But with Luka kind of pulling the strings, this offense if Thompson is going to shoot like this, obviously he can play till he's 100 years old. But man, at least last night, he did look like the Clay of old. And you got to wonder, if that is something that can continue, that could be a massive pickup for the Mavericks, because I think when the signing went down, we're thinking what we saw most of last season from him, and especially at the end in the playoffs. But he kind of flipped the script last night, turned back the clock in many respects.
So what you're saying is the headline should read Klay Thompson, not washed.
Not washed. Rumors of his demise that were greatly exaggerated, at least for one night, man, because, he looked fantastic for the Mavs. The Thunder got a nice win too, but the Mavs, they are the defending champs in the Western Conference, and they look like they're going to be another, at least semifinalist with the way that they played last night.
7 of 13 from the floor, 6 of 10 from behind the arc was Klay Thompson in 26 minutes. Doncic, 9 of 25 from the floor, 4 of 11 from distance, 28 points in 36 minutes. So nice little 1-2 punch yesterday for the Mavericks in that win over the Spurs. Things did not go so well in the debut of former Ainsworth standout, former number 2 pick in the 2020 draft, James Wiseman, who debuting with the Pacers, his third team, tore his Achilles late in the first quarter of Indiana's 115-109 win Wednesday night against the Pistons, by the way. They have not, neither the team nor he have said whether surgery will be required, but I don't see any way that it won't be if it's a torn Achilles. Wiseman and the team, according to a statement from the Pacers, are working together to evaluate treatment options. So,
not a good situation for a guy who, has been through a ton on the court and off the court, and it's a lot of goods, but also a lot of bads. And for a prospect that, man, once upon a time had so much promise, it has been kind of tough. And when he ends up on the Warriors at one point, you're thinking, okay, this is finally where he's supposed to be. Things are going to click, but he's kind of been reduced to that kind of journeyman role early in his career already, kind of bouncing around, hoping to latch on. And, the good news is an injury, obviously, of that nature is always kind of a scary thing in terms of, your potential coming back off that injury. But if he can make a healthy recovery there, he's still only 23 years old. I mean, we're talking still about a very, very young player. So a chance to maybe kind of grind his way back into the fold here. But it's not going to be this season.
No, it doesn't seem that it will be. Shams reporting that Wiseman underwent surgery yesterday to repair that torn Achilles in his left ankle. So an update there, as Wiseman has undergone successful surgery to repair that and will start the road back. But like you said, it's tough to imagine he would play in this 2024-25 season. So tough news again for the former Nashvilleian James Wiseman. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we'll be joined by Dr. Alan SILLS, Chief Medical Officer of the National Football League. Stay tuned. Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Step into the Lionel retail store at Opry Mills, Nashville, and you'll be captivated by all the magic of the 123-year history of Lionel trains. Whether you're already a train enthusiast or just getting started, Lionel will energize your love for trains. NASCAR fan? Come check out your local Lionel station to learn all there is to know about model trains and die-cast NASCAR collectibles. Visit nashville.lionel.com or call 615-455-9399.
So Busy Bee is a very close-knit family. We fight just like every family does. We have arguments, but we always come out with a solution to the problems. We don't just fight about what we want, we fight about what customers need. We want to make sure that every customer we go to is more than satisfied. And that doesn't just start whenever we show up at their door, that starts when we show up every day at work. We want to make sure that we are serving our customers to the best of our ability.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
He shoots, and he scores!
Welcome back to the weekend update edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes, and we are pleased to be joined now by National Football League Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Alan SILLS. And at this point, I should probably explain, Alan, this is not Mississippi State. This is Main Street Sports Today. So wanted to straighten that out. How are we dealing with Jeff Lebby and the 1-6 Bulldogs right now? You're on mute. You're still on mute. Hang on.
How about now?
There we go. There we go. Yeah. Well,
rude, but we'll accept your donation there. But obviously, it's always a challenge when you've got a new coach on hand. But season's not over. Still some games to be played. So Bulldog fans will be ever faithful there.
I see you got your muted maroon and gray jacket on there. A little Mississippi State representation going on there. I can appreciate that. Hey, I don't know if you caught the tail end of our first segment, but we were talking about former Ensworth basketball standout James Wiseman tearing his Achilles a couple of nights ago. In your experience, what's the estimated return from something like that, particularly for a basketball player?
Yeah, I think that's unfortunately pretty variable. It depends on the nature of the tear, sort of where it is in the ligament, and also complete tear versus partial tear. So I don't know enough about that one to give you a projection. What I will say is this. I think in years past, a lot of people assume that when you had an Achilles tear that could be a career-ending injury, and we do not see that being the case anymore. We see a lot of those players in multiple sports that will come back and play very effectively. Obviously, there's some high-profile folks in the NFL in that bucket. So I think that is an injury that's changed, as many things have, with better surgery, better rehab, and so forth.
When I reached out to you not too long ago about coming on the show, Alan, you mentioned, well, I'm in London right now. Can it wait till I get back? Obviously, you are back, but how long were you over there, and how often do you make those trips to the international games like that?
Yeah, so I was actually overseas for about 3 weeks. And so that's a combination of staffing the games we have this year and looking ahead to next year. So I think folks are aware we had 5 international games this year, 1 in Brazil, 3 in London, and we've got 1 in Munich week after next, which I'll be going over for. But next season in 2025, we're going to be adding games in Madrid, possibly be in a different city in Germany, possibly one other city in Europe. And then we're reactivating Mexico City, where we haven't been for a few years. So we'll be going to a total of 8 international games next year. So on the health and safety side, we're always working about a year in advance for setting those things up. Playing an international game is a lot more complex than most folks think. You don't just sort of show up with a bag of footballs and start playing. There's all the arrangements that you got to set up in terms of stadium and local arrangements and practice sites. And obviously for us on the health and safety side, we want to make sure that we can take care of any and all injuries that could occur in a game.
I would imagine that would be the worst nightmare, to have something somewhat catastrophic go on at an international venue like that.
Well, of course, we don't ever want to see a catastrophic injury, but they're great hospitals and great doctors all over the world. And so our work is just matching up with them and then helping them understand some of the nuances of American football. So I'll tell you a quick anecdote of that. We'll often go to these stadiums, which are, of course, usually soccer stadiums, and we'll talk to the stadium paramedics and we'll ask them about removing players from the field, and we'll ask them to show us their equipment. And of course, they've got a stretcher that's, about yay wide and about 6 feet long. And we start to talk about the size of our athletes. And of course, the jaws kind of drop like, wait a minute, you've got to deal with people of what size? And so, those are just things that people don't think about, if they're not familiar with American football. Plus, they're not used to dealing with the gear. So they don't know how to take off a helmet, a face mask, shoulder pads. So it's been a learning process all around, but obviously we've got great partners. And Marty, it's our job. And what I'm looking at doing is I want us to have the same level of care available wherever we're playing as if we were in the U.S. And I think our teams would tell you that's what we get to. So I don't worry about those catastrophic injuries getting great care. We just obviously don't want to see them happen.
Absolutely. And Alan, last year I got to go to London for the Titans game, and we saw Ryan Tannehill go down with that ankle injury there. But we also saw Jordan Love in Brazil, this year. Does there reach a point, is the best practice or common practice to get the athlete back to the United States as quickly as possible? Or, obviously in an emergency you'd operate there, but I'm curious, is there a threshold, or how does that process play out in terms of the care?
Yeah, it's really specific to what the injury is. So obviously, if an athlete can defer and get treated back in the States by their standard care team, they're going to do that. So for example, if someone tears an ACL, you're not going to do surgery that night in any case. And so you've got a chance there to stabilize and then transport the athlete back home. On the other hand, if somebody has a collapsed lung, they can't fly back home. You've got to take care of that in market. Or one thing we saw a couple seasons ago that you're familiar with the Vikings, if a player has a fracture where they've got an open fracture and a bone sort of sticking out, that's something you've got to deal with in market. So we're always trying to think and plan for both of those. But again, we want to make sure if there is a catastrophic injury, brain, spine, arterial injury, that we can provide that excellent, highest standard of care there in that city, so that we don't have to worry about trying to transport an unstable patient.
Makes sense. And like Mo said a moment ago, that is, to me, seems like one of the nightmare situations. I'm just thinking if I suffered an injury internationally, healthcare jokes aside, in the United States here in terms of cost, that's a nightmare situation. But otherwise, it seems like you guys go to great lengths to specify and kind of see what's best for each athlete in each case, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, we really do. And the doctors we're working with in those markets are taking care of the most elite athletes. So, for example, next year in Madrid, when you talk about Real Madrid, you're talking about one of the biggest and most well-resourced sporting clubs in the entire world. Those physicians, they're accustomed to taking care of highly paid, highly skilled athletes. And so, we do have confidence in that. And then one of the things we do that people may not be aware of, if a team lands in this country, let's say on Wednesday before the game on Sunday, we'll embed local physicians with them from the minute they land. That'll stay with them all throughout. So they really get to know and have some degree of confidence in those physicians. And of course, the team brings their own physicians as well. So I think for players, again, they have confidence in what's set up. They know that we work really hard on this, and we've had great experience there so far.
Dr. Alan SILLS, Chief Medical Officer of the National Football League, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Dr. Sills, I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it feels like watching games this season, we have seen more Guardian caps on Sunday afternoons, on Thursday nights, that kind of thing, than we have in seasons past. One, is that correct? Two, if it is, what would you attribute it to?
Yeah, well, it absolutely is correct because we've never seen them before this year. So it's the
Okay.
first time.
Well, there you go.
It's the first time we've seen them in game, really at any level above high school. There have been a couple of high schools in the country in the past 2 or 3 years that have used them in game, but there's never been an in-game usage, to our knowledge, in the college game or in a pro game until this year. And part of that comes out of the fact that we mandated them for use in practice for all players, other than kickers, punters, and quarterbacks who don't get hit in practice. So everybody had to wear it in practice anytime they put a helmet on starting this year, 2024. Okay. The past 2 seasons, we've used them for some subsets of players. So I think, number one, Mo, you've got players getting used to it in practice and seeing how it sort of feels and what it's like to them. Number two, though, Guardian caps have been used in a college game for probably a decade. You know, all of your major sort of Power 4 schools and a lot of other schools have been using them. And so players are sort of accustomed to using them, I think, when they come into the league. And so, again, some of them have elected to use them in game. And then the third thing is you're starting to see, I think, some players may be coming back from injury that are wearing them in those situations as well. So you don't always see it unless you know what to look for, because the players that wear them pull a little logo cap cover over the cap. So it looks sort of like a regular helmet unless you kind of take a closer look at it.
Okay. I know I think Josh Wiley, the tight end for the Titans, is among the guys that are wearing them.
Yes.
Again, a pretty good bit. What is the threshold for who has to wear one versus who doesn't?
Yeah, again, in games, it's totally voluntary. And the reason for that, we often get asked, well, why did you mandate it in practice, but you're not mandating it in games? And the reason is, again, what data we have. We just don't have any game data. We're trying to compile that. And of course, before you're going to make something mandatory, you want to make sure not only that it's efficacious, but there's not a downstream negative effect. So on the contrary, we've got about 10 years experience, as I said, in practice situations. Plus in the NFL, we've been using it for 3 years. So that's why we expanded the mandate. And the real reason we expanded the mandate in practice is what the data told us. For 3 years now, we've seen a 50% reduction, 50% drop in concussions suffered in preseason practices from the players wearing the Guardian cap compared to what they historically had in the 3 previous seasons prior to using it. And, that's a magnitude of an effect that's been pretty hard to ignore. We've seen it ourselves 3 straight seasons. The Canadian Football League saw the same thing. So, we felt that data was a little too compelling to not act upon.
I thought I read somewhere that wearing one reduces your odds of getting a concussion by 10%, and if you're hit by someone wearing one, it reduces it by 20%. Do those numbers sound right?
It's the right number, but it's the wrong metric. It's not risk of concussion. It's how much force gets transmitted through the helmet. So we test these in the laboratory, put them on a helmet, test them, take them off, hit the helmet in the same way. And when the Guardian cap is on the helmet, the force that gets transmitted through the helmet to the brain is reduced on average 10 to 15% by just the one cap. If 2 players wearing them collide, then it becomes additive, and you're talking a 20 to 30% benefit. So it's force reduction, which obviously we think helps with concussion reduction, but we wouldn't say that it's quite that linear relationship.
Okay. All right. And that's the difference in a layman such as myself and someone who is well skilled in this area such as yourself. So thanks for clarifying that and getting me straight. Dr. Alan Sills, Chief Medical Officer of the National Football League, again, joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Alan, all of that said, and again, you all can't mandate it, or you're not mandating them for any threshold at this point. And I know you're not going to address specific situations, so I'm not going to ask you. But if you have someone who has had a history of concussion, say 3 over 2 years in the National Football League, just quarterback X, we'll say, why would you not wear one?
So that gets into another advance that we've seen in helmets. So to put it in short terms, helmet technology has gotten better and better and better over the last couple of years. Better designs, better materials. It's sort of like cars. We have much safer cars that we drive in 2024 than we did even 5 or 10 years ago, and certainly than 20 years ago. So as these helmets have gotten better, manufacturers have really learned and they've tuned them to how people get injured. And so this year in 2024, we actually saw 12 new helmet models introduced to the league. 12 is a really big number for 1 year. And 6 of those tested in the lab better than any helmet we've ever seen. They were the top of the best of the best. And those helmets, again, have been designed specifically based on what we've learned through the years of all these ways that people get injured. When we tested those in the lab, the protection they offered was just as good as a standard helmet with a Guardian cap on top of it. So meaning a regular helmet plus a Guardian cap would reduce force at the same or even a little bit less of a magnitude than these brand new top performing helmets. And so we made a big push to put players in those helmets. We actually allowed them to opt out of wearing a Guardian cap in practice. We said, if you're wearing one of these 6 helmets, you don't have to wear a Guardian cap because it's at least as good, if not better. We saw over 200 players that did that, Mo, and they've actually continued to wear them into the season. And we think that's a tremendous advance and a step forward. Because, again, at the end of the day, we want players in the best, safest helmet, just like you want to drive the safest car. So getting back to any individual player's choice, our encouragement to players is to be familiar with the data. They all are. They pay a lot of attention to it. But if you're choosing one of those 6 helmets, then you're choosing something that actually offers as much protection as a regular helmet plus a Guardian cap in terms of force reduction.
Dr. Sills, I wanted to ask you something I read or maybe heard earlier this week, especially regarding that quarterback I think we all know we're talking about, was the Guardian cap, especially, it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, with those subconcussive hits that kind of, maybe don't register a noticeable concussion. How effective at that are those? Because that seems like at practice, especially like you're speaking, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of repetitions.
Yeah.
And those subconcussive hits, those to me are the ones that I could kind of would maybe be more concerned about because they're so sneaky and under the radar. So is that kind of correct in that methodology there or thought process?
Yeah, it is. And that's actually why we first introduced them. This is a little bit of a probably a misnomer that people don't understand, but we didn't actually introduce Guardian cap to the NFL to reduce concussion. We really didn't. And you say, well, that doesn't make any sense. We did it for the reason that you just said, which is we wanted to reduce the force anytime a player's head was contacted. Now, let's be clear. The best way to eliminate risk is to not hit your head in the first place, right? So we continue to emphasize avoiding head contact wherever you can. But we all know that in any kind of sport, whether we're talking about football or lacrosse or, soccer or hockey, there is inadvertent contact. Players accidentally hit each other. Players hit the ground. So head contact can occur. So the idea is, let's put that cap on so that if there is a head contact, if there is a helmet contact, we can reduce that force like we talked about a minute ago. We were really surprised, frankly, that the concussion rate went down as much as it did, because that's not what we were targeting. We were targeting just what you said, reducing force anytime the helmet was struck. But it was pretty hard to ignore that number. So we did it again the following year, 2022, first year we did it in practice for certain players, brought it back in 2023, saw the same exact thing, a 50% drop in concussion. So I do still think the primary benefit of the caps is that play after play contact, and particularly in practice. But it's pretty hard to ignore that magnitude of concussion reduction in practice. And that's why this year, as I said, we mandated them anytime the helmet is worn for practice.
You also, real quick, you mentioned soccer. And that's something I've noticed, years and years ago, especially goalkeepers. Is that a Guardian cap? Is that what that's considered that sometimes those guys would wear? And if so, how do they differ, I guess, from what the NFL is offering now?
Yeah, it is a different product because, again, soccer players tend to get hurt and get injured in different ways. So I wouldn't get into that. And we haven't tested those products. But the concept is the same, that anytime you have head contact, you can have a concussion. And obviously in soccer, a lot of the head contact is players going for the ball and hitting each other, or players hitting the ground with their head.
Dr. Alan Sills, Chief Medical Officer of the NFL, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Alan, besides concussions, what large-scale injuries are the biggest concern in the league, if there was one in particular?
Well, we actually look at just that question every year, Mo. So we look at what we call injury burden, which is not how many, but basically how much time do players miss. So if you ask the question that way and you say, what is the injury that causes players to miss more time in the NFL than any other injury? I think you guys would be surprised by the answer. You'd probably say concussion or ACL or something. It's actually lower extremity strains, hamstring strains. NFL players miss more time because of hamstring injuries than any other injury. And that's because they're pretty common. They may only miss 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks, but that's still a very big burden of time. And they have a pretty high recurrence rate. Up to 25% of them will reoccur in the same season. So we've got a big push and a big focus on that injury. The number 2 injury on that burden chart are ACLs. Obviously, they're not as many, but they miss a lot of time. And if you look at the top 10, actually, I believe it's 8 out of the 10 are below the waist. They're lower extremity injuries to either strains, the knee ligaments, the foot ankle complex. Concussion is on the list, but it's about 6th or 7th, and then shoulder injuries get in there too. But that's how we kind of orient our research and our efforts. And we do have active research and intervention efforts on all of those. Love to tell you about that sometime. But that's kind of how we look at it, is not just how many injuries do we have, but what's really keeping players off the field, because that's ultimately what matters to everybody.
Right. And I don't guess there's anything comparable to a Guardian cap for hamstrings.
No, hamstring is all about load, and it's about training. It's about how you escalate and de-escalate load, and specifically tailoring preparation to certain positions. So we've done a lot of work on that in the preseason. We've actually had a lot of success. We've driven down the preseason hamstring injuries for 2 years in a row now, somewhere between 20 and 30%. We've seen that persist into the regular season. So we're proud of that work. There's a lot more to be done. But that is a very active issue that not as many people are talking about or maybe hear about, but it's really important to our teams and our players.
Dr. Sills, I'm also curious, we're talking elite, the most elite athletes on the planet. So recovery is more important than any other athletes, I suppose. But maybe to what lengths can you expand upon the concept of recovery and how these athletes, man, it just seems like they are doing such a great job now more than ever of trying to prevent as much as they can by actively recovering in a productive manner.
Yeah, everybody monitors load really carefully. So athletes might wear GPS tracking devices, not just in games, but in practice. So you know exactly how many yards, how many total yards, how many high-speed running efforts, how that's spaced out. And all that gets monitored on a daily basis. And we actually now have prediction tools that will tell you every day whether a player is, green, yellow, or red in terms of their risk for a soft tissue injury based on a bunch of metrics of how much load and how much activity. And so literally teams do look at that on a day-by-day basis, and they really try to adjust workload for players, whether, again, it's in practice or preseason. And that science is continuing to evolve at just an incredibly rapid rate. And by the way, it takes a whole village of people. That's not just coaches or strength coaches, but it's the athletic trainers, the physician, the sports scientists, the performance people, the equipment managers, the strength coach, the position coach. All of those people are meeting together and reviewing that data every day. And it's just a whole different world than it was even 10 years ago.
Other quick question in regards to that recovery piece is that something that's offered to every team, and then it's up to each team as far as how they utilize it? Is it mandated? Because it seems like we can certainly see some franchises using it more than others, and perhaps maybe that's why they're kind of the best of the best. So I'm curious how that is disseminated.
Yeah, everybody monitors and uses it. Now, people interpret it different ways, but one of the things we've been able to do, again, that fans wouldn't know, is all 32 clubs share all that data with us, with the league. We actually transmit it to a third-party company. We don't go in and look at it. So I don't go in and look at the Titans practice or the Steelers practice, but we send it to a bioengineering company and a data science company, and they take all that and they combine it together, because the reality is this: no one team has enough data to be able to take their injuries and marry it up against that performance data. But when we put all 32 teams together, now we can begin to understand it. So that's what we've done, is we've taken the tracking data, the injury data, and video, and taken these consulting companies who put it all together, and then they bring back the observations to the entire league. Because I'm a big believer, Wade, that I don't think this is the secret sauce. You shouldn't have an advantage competitively just because you can keep your players healthier. We want to keep everybody healthy and then let that competitive advantage come from scheme and coaching and all the other things that happen. But we think that everybody deserves to get to the starting line with a healthy component of players.
Dr. Alan Sills, Chief Medical Officer of the National Football League, joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Dr. Sills is a baseball guy at heart. Yankees, Dodgers, who you got?
Wow, you really put me on the spot here. I'm going to go Dodgers in 6.
Dodgers in 6. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Alan, we appreciate it, man, and look forward to getting you back on again sometime to talk about some of that other stuff.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Appreciate what you do and enjoy being with you, and enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. You too. We'll talk to you.
Dr. Sills.
When we continue here on the weekend update edition of Main Street Sports Today, we will continue in the realm of the National Football League. Again, had some Thursday night football last night, and it wasn't as ugly as Wade told you it was going to be. Stick around. We'll tell you why when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this.
Do you want to be a bad man? Yeah, you do. Do you want to taste sweet salvation underneath the summer moon? Do you need another hand now? Yes, you do. Go see Miss Josie down on Columbus Avenue. All right, Columbus Avenue.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
So Busy Bee is a very close-knit family. We fight just like every family does. We have arguments, but we always come out with a solution to the problems. We don't just fight about what we want, we fight about what customers need. We want to make sure that every customer we go to is more than satisfied. And that doesn't just start whenever we show up at their door, that starts when we show up every day at work. We want to make sure that we are serving our customers to the best of our ability.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Weekend Update continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes, and we will continue the NFL talk as Matthew Stafford channeled something last night. He had 3 touchdown passes coming into last night's game. He threw for 4 in the Rams' 30-20 win over Minnesota. And man, he looks sharp at times, shaking off tackles and eluding defensive linemen and throwing for scores, and just looked like vintage Stafford last night. Wade, you're on mute.
Stafford kind of rising up and, we're getting back to what he is certainly capable of, and having Nakua back, having Kupp back. It kind of seemed like the Rams are kind of, easing back into a little something here, 30-20, getting a nice effort. And, he throws the TD to Kupp, and then, man, for just a moment, he kind of gave that look and kind of that wink almost, did Stafford, we've talked a lot about Cup getting traded, and it kind of felt like maybe that was, one last hurrah. But then, I mean, they win the game. They're sitting there at 3-4,
Right.
and all of a sudden now you kind of got to maybe re-wonder about what's out there for this Los Angeles team the rest of this season.
Yeah, and I mean, there was also some kind of murmurs that Nakua may be available as well, but he had 7 catches last night, did not catch a touchdown, but 106 yards again on 7 catches, and Cup as well. So I mean, they looked viable even as they get to 3-4 with that win, but for the Vikings, the get right game kind of eluded them there as the Rams did kind of surge in that one, but the Vikings didn't get any help either, because with it 28-20 late in the ball game, the Vikings have the ball after that last Rams offensive score and looking to go the distance. I think they were inside their 10, maybe the 5 even, and Darnold gets sacked in the end zone for a safety. But wait, there's more.
Darnold, look out, safety. Byron Young.
Safety, but almost gets his head wrenched off, as well as Young got his hand in the face mask of Sam Darnold there. A face mask that I'll be honest, I didn't see it in real time, but you did. You kind of see, Wade. We've watched enough football. When you see somebody's head jerk a certain way, it kind of makes you think, wait a minute, was that a face mask? And sure enough, it was. And everybody saw it except the officials. And apparently that's not reviewable. And inside the final 2 minutes, it's not like Minnesota could throw the challenge flag on it either. I don't know if it could have been reviewed even if they could have challenged it, but they couldn't challenge it inside the final 2 minutes. So they're just kind of stuck with an 8-point game and a chance to go down and maybe tie, suddenly becoming a 10-point game, and we're done because we've got to kick it back to them. But there's a great still picture of it, and it's clear in the fact that it wasn't fixable. The officials couldn't look at it on their own. They couldn't be asked to look at it. It just feels like to me that that's where the review and the review rules fall short, because it feels like the ultimate objective in any of these situations should be to get it right. And
For
whatever the mechanics take for that to take place is what needs to be in place, it feels like.
Yeah, sure does. And, a couple things on the play specifically, because, even after the play, Byron Young, which was pretty funny though, but Young, he's got the classic giveaway when he puts the hands up like, oh no, I can't believe I just did this. That is the dead giveaway. But props to Byron though. He tweeted after the game and he said, well, it was just so loud in there that I had to cover my ears up. So that's what he said he was doing. But yeah, it seems like one. And the way I understand it, face mask is not reviewable anyway. But I did hear this, which was, we're a radio show, so fun for radio fodder. But the USFL, they have what's called a super challenge, and you can basically challenge anything. And whether it's reviewable or not at that point, if you have a quote unquote super challenge, you could challenge something like that. And it's a chance to go back and kind of like NBA now, where they review, if you're reviewing possession now this year in the NBA, they can go back and look and say, well, forget the possession. There was a foul that was missed before that. They can now retroactively call that foul. Doesn't really exist in its current juncture in the NFL. And yeah, it hurts the Vikings. Good win for the Rams. And, as we talked about it on the show yesterday, but the Motor City effect is for real, because the Lions kind of claim another scalp, as it were, with another team going down after playing those physical Lions last night in the form of the Vikings, who went from undefeated to 2 losses in less than a week.
That's crazy. 0-5 are teams that play the week after they play the Lions. The Rams lost to the Cardinals. Tampa Bay lost to Denver. The Cardinals lost to the Commanders. The Seahawks lost to the Giants, and now the Vikings lost to the Rams, all in the week after playing the Detroit Lions. So the Lions kind of break you, at least temporarily. So there's more for the Titans to look forward to.
Titans,
this weekend.
Titans better win for not just this week, but next week versus the Patriots if that is going to continue. And did see a great joke, though, that the only team that didn't lose was the Cowboys, but that was because they were on bye. And, some people even joke the Cowboys are so bad they probably found a way to lose on the bye week. So the stat is, they're a physical team, and the Vikings, we talked, last week and at points this week that the NFC North, there is a chance if things go a certain way that all 4 teams could get in to the playoffs this year, because that division is absolutely loaded. And the Vikings go from one of the last 2 teams to be unbeaten to, they got some work to do. Their schedule gets a little bit easier in the next couple of weeks, but they still have some work to do. That's one they probably wish they had back.
No doubt. Carolina set to start Bryce Young again this week against the Broncos because Andy Dalton was involved in a car wreck with his family earlier this week and injured his thumb. It is thought that Dalton will likely be able to be QB2, that they'll be able to actually carry him on the active roster for the game. But Young set to start. It'll be his first since, he was bumped out of that spot by Andy Dalton. So that'll be worth keeping an eye on. What does Young do with his second opportunity as QB1 for the Panthers? I'm not sure how much it matters who they play at quarterback, but Bryce Young is the guy. Meanwhile, the Raiders signed Desmond Ridder off of Arizona's practice squad earlier this week with the injury to Aiden O'Connell, and Ridder will be their number 2 behind Gardner Minshew this weekend. So some young quarterbacks getting shots again.
Yeah, and we mentioned that Brady can't play unless he gives up that ownership stake. I'm willing to bet that, man, you know what I'm thinking, right? If he could do it right now, I feel like without even potentially having trained at all, Brady could give the Raiders a better shot in terms of the quarterback position than what they're trotting out at the moment, because Ridder, that's tough. That's what we call kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel.
It's tough, and it's unfortunate that it's gone the way it did for him, coming into the league with such high hopes coming out of Cincinnati and going to Atlanta and everything that took place there. Yeah, it's been tough for him. You hate to see it. Finally, they say nothing good happens after midnight. And I guess I'm old enough to start espousing that theory, but Denver Broncos receiver Josh Reynolds was shot late last night after I'm sorry, this wasn't last night. It was last week. It was last Friday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning, coming out of a Denver area night spot. He and 2 other guys were shot, a couple of shooters. This took place at about 3:00 in the morning out there. And man, I don't know where you are, what you're doing that you're getting shot at, but and maybe it's not your fault that you're getting shot at, but still you're around people doing that kind of stuff. I don't know, man. It's tough. It's wild.
We've talked about Pearsall, of course. We mentioned Brian Robinson last year for the Commanders, and scary situation. Hey, real quick, I did want to mention this, Mo. This is political as I'll get on this show, but the election is coming up on November 5th, and if you are a believer in tea leaves, you are dialed in to the Bears and Commanders this weekend, because the rule is back in action, and the final home game before the election, supposedly, was it 17 out of 19 times, has correctly predicted the election. So If you're leaning for the Democratic candidate, you're rooting for the Commanders this weekend because they are currently in office. If you're rooting for the Republican candidate, you're rooting for the Bears this weekend. So in a weird, way of things, the last home game for the Commanders in the last 19 elections, 17 out of 19 times, it is quote unquote correctly predicted how it will go. So just a little something extra for the afternoon kickoff between those two teams this weekend.
So the last home game for Washington prior to the election, if the home team has won, the
incumbent party. Yep. And so,
wow.
I mean, I'm willing to say, whatever, football election, obviously there's no correlation there, but I mean, 17 out of 19, something is up.
That you got to consider that a trend for sure. So, act accordingly. What time's that kickoff Sunday?
I think it's at 3:15. It's in the afternoon window. And so, maybe a little more eyeballs on that game for some folks. In addition to seeing if Daniels will play, because you could also obviously get Daniels versus Williams, which would be an electric matchup. But they still haven't ruled whether or not Jaden's going to get to go this weekend. And we just mentioned the NFC North. The Bears are 4-2, and the Commanders are 5-2. So that is a game that's got some juice in addition to the political undertones, kicking off at 3:25 on CBS. That would be a big win for the visitors, possibly in more ways than one. So we will certainly keep an eye on that. Just keep an eye on your timeline for Bears fans or Commanders fans out of nowhere from this weekend. I guess a good way to think about that, right? Say, I didn't know you were a Commanders fan, or I didn't know you were a Bears fan. All of a sudden, what's up with the tweets here? Our number one of the weekend update has wrapped here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we will reach into the grab bag. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vilay Saisuka, CEO and founder of Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee here in Murfreesboro. We offer foot and ankle care from ingrown toenails to diabetic foot wounds. We also fix ankle fractures and things like that.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
So, you want to be a part of the Busy Bee team, huh? Well, how do you see yourself fitting into the organization? Oh, I get it. You want to be a weather bee.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2 of the weekend update here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, starts right now. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes, and we are getting into the grab bag here in this segment as the Liberty celebrated pretty good following their WNBA championship earlier this week, the first in the franchise's 28-year history. They had a championship parade in New York City for the winners. First in 51 years, I thought I read. I guess since the 1973 Knicks won the first basketball championship in New York in 51 years. There we go.
They had Messier showing off the cup one year in the 90s.
Yeah. So, yeah. Nice for them to be, received and recognized that way. Well deserved, great season for them. And again, saw some clips from yesterday, and Ellie the Elephant may be the best mascot in pro sports right now. She's something else. Look forward to her and the team coming back next year, and maybe a prelude.
Question though, we talked about this after in the series. I want to know, were the WNBA officials and or the officiating crew also in the parade the other night?
Valid question.
Just wondering.
Cheryl Reeve might be asking that question as well. Actually,
I didn't see them there in any of the clips that I saw, but they could have been there, and I just missed it. I don't know.
Maybe one of them was Ellie. I don't know. Mark, do we have video? I see something that looks like maybe we got video.
Watch your back. Sorry.
Ellie is a hit.
Stunting.
With the Liberty faithful. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, great honor for them, and nice that the city recognized them that way. Prelude for the Yankees. At least the Yankees are hoping so. They open World Series play 7:08 tonight at LA. Garrett Cole getting the ball for the visitors. Jack Flaherty, acquired from Detroit at the deadline, making the start for the Dodgers. So, this, given, our conversation with John Parado of Draft Nation yesterday and the pitching matchups, this might be the best one we see.
Yeah, to me, I kind of get the feeling that this is going to be a slugfest. There's just so much firepower in these lineups, and we talk more about the pitching staffs at large for both of these teams, and maybe who's there and who's not there, perhaps. But it just, to me, feels like we're destined for a couple of really high-scoring games, kind of like John said yesterday, maybe a 10-8. It certainly feels like some of these games are going to end up like 6-5. I don't know how many 2-1 or 3-2 games we're going to get. It feels like the runs are going to be shifting higher to me.
And I think that makes sense when you look at, again, the pitching and who you're not going to have. Specifically, Clayton Kershaw dealing with a bone spur on his toe, pitched early in the postseason but could not continue. This will be the first postseason that you've not seen Kershaw, Zach Greinke, Max Scherzer, or Justin Verlander since 2010, with Kershaw not being on the active roster for the Dodgers in the World Series. He has been their Game 1 World Series starter on fourth? This is his fourth World Series. The first time he's not starting Game 1. Started the 17 opener against Houston, the 18 opener against Boston, and the 20 opener against Tampa Bay. So, yeah, and again, no Kershaw, no Greinke, no Verlander, no Scherzer. It's almost like a passing of the baton, I guess, from those high-powered, long-time pitching aces, and suddenly none of those guys being around for this postseason.
Yeah, and man, to absolutely cement his legacy, it would be cool to see Kershaw have been able to go out and maybe really kind of guide his team to victory. He was the champ in 2020, but obviously that was an unusual year to say the least. Kind of like the bubble with the Lakers winning the title. So, I mean, man, there's been so much discourse over this guy's career about, is he really, really one of the all-time greats? Is he ever really going to do it in the postseason? So, to me, you just got to know it's got to be a massive amount of pain in that toe to sit this one out, because if there was any chance, it feels like this guy would definitely be giving it a go. And like you said, kind of a passing of the torch, it feels like, or at least ushering in a new era.
Yeah, no doubt. A couple of weeks ago, after the Atlanta Braves said that they would not be making any changes to their coaching staff, they made changes to their coaching staff. They dismissed hitting coach Kevin Seitzer, as well as his assistant, Bobby McLinus, and catching coach Sal Fasano. Yesterday, they announced that 53-year-old Tim Hires has been named the new hitting coach. Hires comes off the staff at Texas, where he was a part of their 2023 World Series championship. He had previously been hitting coach at Boston and was there when the Red Sox won the 2018 championship. So this guy's got a little bit of a pedigree behind him, more so as a coach than as a player. He played, I think, 133 career games at the major league level with the Padres, Tigers, and Marlins. But as a hitting coach, he has worked with a dozen Silver Slugger winners. So take that for what it's worth. I feel like maybe the biggest thing, Seitzer had been there for 10 years, and all of the players hadn't been there for 10 years, but this might just be a hearing a different voice kind of thing as much as anything. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Hires is a Atlanta area native, played his high school ball locally there at Newton County, which some folks who are familiar with Atlanta will be familiar with. So he's coming home here, and they tend to like folks with ties to the area, it feels like. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes.
Yeah, and kind of like we've discussed earlier this summer with Weathers and, with his pitching coach Stottlemyre. I mean, sometimes, for these roles that may not seem like to the outsiders, they really make that much of a difference. All it takes is the right person or the right thing being said to the right player, and boom, you're unlocking quite a bit of potential. So I'm not well versed enough to know the ins and outs here, but if something comes up, wouldn't be shocked if we're sitting here next year at this time. You're like, man, this was either a really great hire because XYZ, or man, this was a really bad hire because of XYZ. But it feels like these are the guys along the peripheral that could kind of make the difference when you're talking about championship aspirations.
Absolutely. A couple of teams looking to build on some momentum tonight as the Nashville Predators travel to the Chicago Blackhawks for a 7:30 puck drop. Preds finally won a game this week, downing visiting Boston, and come back home tomorrow night to take on Columbus. So suddenly they got a chance to, stack some wins, as they like to say.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get a win, obviously, if you're Nashville. Build on the momentum. That's what I'm going to be curious about, is knocking off, not just getting the first win, but the fact you got your win versus the Bruins. Does that do anything for you? And if you kind of have been talking the talk a little bit like the Preds kind of have, ironically, it feels like more of the expectations have come from the outside rather than the Preds themselves. It feels like the media from the jump, we've kind of all just said, oh yeah, they're going to be that much better because they made a good run last year and they got better on paper. But it doesn't feel like internally they've kind of matched that as much in terms of expectations. But if you have those aspirations, if you do think you're that kind of team, then tonight is a game you should be able to go on the road and beat Chicago.
You would certainly like to think so. And again, excuse me, the Grizzlies, coming off a win out at Utah, continue on the road tonight when they travel to Houston. Again, another team looking to stack some wins early on.
Yeah, it should be a fun game. I'm going to be watching from afar tonight, but as I kind of do get to watch, I'm going to be curious. Do the minutes kind of change? Because we talked about the other day, Taylor Jenkins kind of really you almost thought it was a preseason game, the way he was kind of micromanaging some of the minutes and with the lineup combinations. Doesn't look like Jaren Jackson will go again tonight. Edey fouled out, kind of a lackluster debut for him the other night. Maybe he bounces back. It's also the first of a back-to-back, so maybe some guys might potentially sit tonight. But Houston got their pants pulled down in a big way. They got beat by the Hornets the other night in their opener. So,
did you see that? Did you see that slam Brandon Miller had?
I did not see that, but
he had a nice
throw one down.
He threw
because
one down.
The Rockets are a sneaky team this year. Improved a lot. I think caught a lot of folks by surprise last year, trying to maybe take this step up. I think it'll be a fun game tonight. I'm curious to see what happens, and especially the Grizz with this back-to-back tonight and tomorrow.
You mentioned Taylor Jenkins' rotation out of Utah. All 11 players got double digits in that win in terms of minutes. I'm sorry, double-digit minutes, 10 minutes plus against Utah. So how he adjusts that, or if he adjusts that, be something to keep an eye on tonight against Houston.
The other real quick funny thing about that was our guy Yuki, who is going to end up being, he's kind of already a favorite of ours here on the show, but our good buddy and friend of the show, Devin Walker over there in Memphis, he said, I don't know who's teaching Yuki his dance moves, because, I mean, every play he's got one move, and it's raised in the roof. So I don't know if Yuki is living in like 2000 or, what's going on. But he is kind of he's kind of buying in already, and the guys seem to like him. He didn't play the other night, but I'll be curious to see maybe he gets a little tick this evening as part of that rotation. But he's working on his sideline game at least.
It might be like the movie Hitch. He might just be kind of staying in his comfort zone with his dance moves.
We're borderline memes status if he keeps it up. I hope he gets in tonight. Scottie Pippen had 7 assists the other night for the Grizz too. Good debut.
Nice. There is a website, Wade. You may be familiar with it, but I just became familiar with it earlier today. MyTeamIsBetterThanYourTeam.com. Home of the Transitive Property National Championship poll.
I have not been to this site, but I am aware of the concept at least, and I'm excited to check this out now.
With Middle Tennessee State's win over Kennesaw last Tuesday night, the Blue Raiders can hold a claim to being the number 4 team in the country. Because Kennesaw beat Liberty. Liberty beat East Carolina. East Carolina beat Old Dominion. Old Dominion beat Georgia State. Georgia State beat Vanderbilt. Here's where it cuts loose. Vanderbilt defeated Alabama, obviously.
Mhm.
Alabama beat Georgia, and Georgia beat Texas. So your number 4, Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders at 2-6.
Hey, expand this playoff to 120 teams, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. Nice. It's a nice little something to keep an eye on as the season progresses, but I don't think we're going to put too much stock in it. Let's go ahead and take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return for more of the weekend update, we will be chatting with Joe Rexrode of The Athletic, talking about those Texas Longhorns as they get set to come to town for a matchup with Vanderbilt. Stay tuned after the break.
Hi, I'm Riley, a certified physician associate here at Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee. We have a couple locations, Murfreesboro, McMinnville, as well as Franklin. We treat people of all ages. We're excited to get you back on your feet and hope we can help you today.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
He shoots, and he scores!
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
The weekend update continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We are coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes, and we may or may not have Joe Rexrode of The Athletic. Mark, what's the verdict?
I can hear you guys. You guys got me?
Oh, Joe, what's the verdict? Yes, we've got you, Joe. Hey, appreciate you, man. I know you are taking care of some Uber duties this afternoon as well. But thanks for taking some time with us and wedging us in. Number 5 Texas coming to number 25 Vanderbilt tomorrow. I don't know if that's necessarily the headliner in the Southeastern Conference, but it's certainly a big ball game.
Absolutely. Obviously for Texas, who, different times this year, I've thought they might be the best team in the country. But you look at what they've done. I do think there was a little bit of fool's gold based on how they looked against what we all thought would be a pretty good Michigan team, and is not a good Michigan team. Really look
Wade.
at what, yeah,
It is.
Right. So you look at what they've done, and it's really not all that impressive. And of course, they, just got really, I think, bullied pretty thoroughly at home by a Georgia team that still was sloppy in that game. So, look, I think now you have the can of worms that Steve Sarkisian opened at quarterback with, putting in Arch Manning for a little bit and putting Quinn Ewers back in. So I think it's a really interesting game. And even though, a lot of people saw at least snippets of the Vanderbilt win over Alabama, I still think a lot of people look at this, the odds makers, what is it, 18.5, something like that. I think it's a much better football game than that based on Vanderbilt's offense. I can't like Vanderbilt's defense in this matchup at all. I think if Texas executes, it's going to be really tough on that Vanderbilt defense. But, you need to tip a pass at the line. You need to rip the ball free. You got one of those early against Alabama, and you kind of stayed ahead of the chains all game, and that's the same kind of thing you're going to need. But I think Vanderbilt's offense can have success.
Joe, you mentioned that Texas is an 18-point favorite in this matchup, but Vanderbilt was a double-digit underdog against Virginia Tech, Alabama, and Kentucky, and they are 3-0 in those 3 games. So, and 2 of those were in Nashville. I don't know if anybody has ever thought that Vanderbilt had a home field advantage, but does Vanderbilt have a home field advantage?
Well, that's going to be really interesting, Mo, because, I don't know if you read any of the stuff in the Vanderbilt Hustler, the student publication this week, but, there have been some issues with, some of the available seating for students and, not being able to leave and come back and things like that. And they've fixed some of that. And it looks like they're going to have a bigger student presence than normal. I also, there are Vanderbilt, older season ticket holders, older being non-student, right? Who sell off their, you sell off your tickets to Bama and Texas, you pay for the whole year or whatever. I think there's some of that going on. And that Texas people, first year in the SEC, and you see this road trip, and what do people do? They see in the NFL or college football, see a road trip to Nashville, like, let's do that one, So, there's going to be a lot of burnt orange in that stadium. I think it'll probably feel, like some of the Tennessee Vanderbilt games have felt when Vanderbilt was pretty good, right? When it's kind of like a 50-50 kind of crowd and it's a great atmosphere. So, I don't know that. I think it'll be more like that, but I still think it'll be a great environment when it's a sellout. It should be fully packed. And I think Vanderbilt fans are just going to be louder because they actually have hope right now.
There's that. And there's not been a whole lot of that, but clearly it all starts with Pavia. 357 total yards against Ball State in that win that wasn't necessarily what you expected after they had handled Kentucky and Alabama the 2 weeks prior, 24-14 the final there. But I don't know that you can be too worried about style points when you're Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and they did talk this week about playing down the competition. I know sometimes that's just a handy excuse. There's probably some truth to it. I was a little disappointed they didn't, kind of build on performance there. But look, obviously they rise up. They rise up for the good opponents. Like you said, they should have won that Missouri game. And really, I was really impressed. The follow-up to Alabama, after a week of them doing every possible interview that you could do, which I think is smart and they should have done. But some people would say, man, are you messing up your next week? Well, then they go into Kentucky and take care of business. It's a legit football team. So, I think I'm just really excited to watch this Vanderbilt offense against against any defense. I think this Vanderbilt offense can find answers against anyone and put any defense in college football in a bind with the creativity, with Pavia's ability to run it, to make good decisions, not just good decisions throwing, but good decisions keeping, running, pitching. It's just it's a fascinating, fun offense to watch, and I think they're going to score points tomorrow. That's one thing I feel good about.
Joe, that's exactly what I was going to ask you about is this kind of new look Vanderbilt offense. Have they reached the point where they're kind of military academy in the sense, oh man, you really have to extra game plan for this offense, or are they still kind of so new in this process that you're kind of, you're not keeping the D coordinators that much awake at night? I guess I'm just curious if they fully got folks' attention with what they're doing schematically right now.
I would hope so, because certainly there's the core of this is still basically like assignment football, right? Which, first of all, that's hard enough on its own, right? I mean, I think like the ACC teams over time, it was kind of like, okay, you get used to that week where, okay, you got to get ready for Georgia Tech, and, you're going to get cut block all day, and it's assignment football, and maybe they got better at that. But the difference is, and look at Navy this year. The difference is when you do that stuff and you can throw it downfield, and you can do, they do some just straight up hard play action too, right? And throw it downfield. When you actually have that element, which a lot of those offenses over the years, it's here and there, they'll bust it out, and usually a receiver's wide open downfield. But it's not a consistent enough part of your offense. I mean, when you have that too, that's tough. I mean, that is tough, and you kind of have to make choices at times. And then you throw in just some of the just really creative stuff that they'll mix in there with it. I mean, it's amazing sometimes when I watch them, like, how do you practice all these different things, right? But obviously you're practicing specific plays. You still have the general size of a game plan and the catalog of plays. It's just that sometimes it feels like it's like three different offenses. So, no, I think defensive coordinators are probably taking this very seriously at this point. And look, maybe, like you can look back at Alabama, maybe they didn't enough. And that's part of what bit them. And maybe Texas now learns from that mistake and they're more prepared. But I still think with Pavia, with his ability to read things, they're going to have a lot of answers on a lot of plays just because he's going to make the right choice.
I'm also curious, emotionally, the Longhorns got to be disappointed with the result from last week, but kind of like we discussed earlier with the NFL and that post-Lions hangover where teams have yet to win games against them. I'm curious, what kind of toll physically did Georgia take on Texas, you think? And presumably that's got to play, if there is an advantage, into Vanderbilt's hands.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Absolutely. Yeah, I think for sure. I still think Georgia's as physical as anyone. And again, that to me is what that game was about. Georgia's still doing some things to help Texas stay in it, but physically battering them. So I agree. You've got that. And again, you've got this whole quarterback thing, which Sarkisian has never indulged that at all. And now that's a thing. If Ewers has, a couple 3-and-outs, maybe it's more of a thing at home. But then again, there will be thousands of Texas fans there tomorrow. So you'll still hear it from them, potentially at the quarterback. Then you just have the angry team thing, which, of course, doesn't play in Vanderbilt's favor. The fact that they just took this loss and people are questioning them and things like that. So it's really an interesting kind of combination of intangibles there.
Joe Rexrode of The Athletic joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Joe, with everything that has taken place, I mean, it's still tough to pick Vanderbilt in this ball game.
It is. I like on our show today, I picked them to cover, and I said, I think Texas probably wins by about 10, maybe a couple touchdowns, 13, 14, something like that. I mean, it's a bad match. I mean, look, Texas. I think when Texas gets it rolling, and I know they've lost all these running backs, and they still have great running backs. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's like, hey, running back 5 is still, a pro. It's, now Isaiah Bond is doubtful, and that is the significant stops. It's hard for me to like them in this matchup, and that's where I still have to go. I just feel like, I mean, Texas has pros all over the place, including on the offensive line. Their left tackle, Kelvin Banks. I mean, they're loaded. I have to give the edge to Texas because I think there's probably a stop or two more that Texas gets that Vanderbilt doesn't. But again, it's still it's a competitive football game, and I still think some people struggle to buy into that with Vanderbilt. And I think you're probably going to have some more people watching tomorrow and be like, yeah, that offense is every game the rest of this year, they are going to challenge whoever's on the other side of the ball.
You mentioned the running back situation with Texas. You also mentioned Isaiah Bond, the receiver, who is doubtful. Also, safety Andrew Makuba is doubtful for the ball game, all of which, looks like it kind of stacks up in Vanderbilt's favor, but it just, it's tough. You just don't know if there's enough of that, and if Vanderbilt has enough of those plays to pull off another big victory at First Bank Stadium here against number 5 Texas. I guess it depends on who you ask as to whether this is the biggest game in the league, but if Texas Vanderbilt isn't, then I'm sure LSU Texas A&M is.
Yeah, that would be my pick of the biggest game. That's a huge one. And Texas A&M's kind of quietly just hung in there, and since Notre Dame, and they got a chance. Everybody's talking now like Texas A&M at the end, and Texas A&M could ruin things. Well, Texas A&M could also be right there, and meanwhile LSU, it's hard to believe that if LSU played USC right now, what would happen? I don't think it would be pretty. I think it would be LSU by a lot. And this is where you get into these, you get in the committee room on stuff like this. It happens in basketball too. It's like sometimes a team at the beginning of the season doesn't resemble what a team is later. To Brian Kelly's credit, his team's improved a ton. I think Garrett Nussmeier's been pretty good all year, but he keeps getting better. So, to me, this is the loser's not out, but it's kind of an elimination game. And, of course, LSU still has Alabama coming to its place in a couple weeks, which is going to be critical. Of course, it's an absolute must for Alabama, but, we'll see what that means for LSU. But I think it could be a really, really good game. If this game were at LSU, I would like LSU possibly convincingly, but, College Station can be tricky.
Venturing outside of the Southeastern Conference, Joe, what's a game or what are a couple of games that you've kind of got your eye on this weekend?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, tonight is a gigantic game, and I'm anti college football on a Friday night, of course, but it's late at least, so it's nice and late. So we'll be coming back from our Nolensville Summit game, and then it's UNLV Boise State, and to me, the winner of this game is going to be the most likely group of 5 team that's going to be in the playoff. Certainly Army, Navy are in there, and they both play Notre Dame, and we'll see. But UNLV Boise State, gigantic game at UNLV, and of course Ashton Jenny. If you haven't watched Ashton Jenny play, try to tune in at 9:30. I think it's CBS Sports Network, but he's every bit worth the hype. He's going to be, I believe, a top 15 pick. He's that good. He's unbelievable. And, of course, he's trying to chase down that Barry Sanders all-time rushing record. So that's the one that stands out. It's not another game that's really big. And, if you're one of these SEC teams, that is right in the mix there, you got to look at other leagues too, and you could probably start playing the rooting game. Root for Wisconsin to beat Penn State, because Penn State plays Ohio State still, and if they lose that like they usually do, that's 2 losses. Wisconsin is playing a lot better, since Alabama crushed them, and that's a really big game in the playoff race to me. If Penn State gets that game, hard for me to imagine an 11-1 Penn State not getting the playoff, but this is the most likely other loss for them. And that would, I think, be very helpful for teams like, whoever. You can name 6 SEC teams right now that could be compared to them at the end.
Joe, I was going to ask you, you mentioned Genty, and we talked about what a big game that will be and how fun it kind of is that they're knowing that there's some playoff implications to it. You've also got Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and Dylan Gabriel, but also you added Curtis Rourke, the Indiana QB, to your Heisman list. I'm curious, Is that basically what we're set with, you think, going forward, or is there somebody off your grid that still could play their way onto your grid in your mind in terms of Heisman voting?
Yeah, I think I'm not closing the book yet. A guy who people talked about a lot this week is Kyle McCord. And I was like, you know what? If he goes into Pitt and he lights them up, then he has had ridiculous numbers. And of course, what a nightmare night! 3 pick sixes, 5 picks. Holy crap! That was tough. But
undefeated Pitt, by the way.
Yeah, that's right, undefeated Pitt. And then there's a guy, Eli Holstein, who's been their quarterback. The Alabama transfer is a guy who, to me, there's still a potential for one of these quarterbacks. Well, look, I mentioned Penn State. Drew Aller is having a big year. What if they won at Wisconsin and he beats Ohio State? Right now, all of a sudden he's on the map. You definitely see players emerge sometimes. Right now, it's probably going to be among that group you mentioned, but it's the quarterback of some of these teams that still have a ton of opportunity. Look, Indiana's Curtis Rourke. Now he's hurt and he's going to miss this week, and he's supposed to be back for Michigan State next week. That guy is leading the nation in passing efficiency. What if they go into Ohio State and win? I certainly can't keep him away from New York, right? I mean, if he's going to keep playing like this week after week. So I still think there's a surprise name that's not in the main group right now that probably emerges.
Joe Rexrode.
Other thing, real quick for Joe here, Mo. While I got Joe, we did mention Michigan. He has mentioned his beloved Michigan State Spartans. Joe, it's not 1956 when Michigan State was number 2 and Michigan's number 5. How ugly is this rivalry game going to be on Saturday in your mind?
Well, at least it's competitive, I think, right?
It'll be competitively ugly, guaranteed.
Yeah. It's not a great one. It's relegated to the Big Ten Network. Obviously, Michigan just struggling to pass the ball. Still think Michigan's a good defensive team. Still powerful, can run the ball. Michigan State has a tremendous young talent, Aiden Childs at quarterback. He turns it over though too. They look great, beating Iowa last week. I think Michigan probably wins a close game, but yeah, you're right. It's not going to be the most memorable or pretty installment of this rivalry whatsoever.
That was more than I was anticipating getting. So thank you for humoring me there. Yeah, that's more than needs to be discussed.
Yeah, Joe, enjoy I-65 South between Franklin and the Summit exit. Hello.
We still got you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just saying, enjoy your trip down to Summit. It'll be a lot of fun once you get south of Franklin. He doesn't have us. Y'all, that was Joe Rexrode of The Athletic joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Let's go ahead and head to a break. And when we return to the Lee Company studios, Wade and I will take on the Wonder Slate, 10 of this weekend's college football games against the spread. Let's see what we can do when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this.
So, you want to be a part of the Busy Bee team, huh? Well, how do you see yourself fitting into the organization? Oh, I get it. You want to be a weather bee.
Do you want to be a bad man? Yes, you do. Do you want to taste sweet salvation underneath the summer moon? Do you need another hand now? Yes, you do. Go see Miss Josie down on Columbus Avenue. All right, Columbus Avenue.
To the final segment of the weekend update edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Excuse me. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neela. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios. And again, it is the final segment. So it is time for Wade and Mo versus the Wonder Slate as we take on 10 of this weekend's college football games against the spread. And we are in a flat-footed tie right now. Each of us has picked 33 games correctly. Incorrectly picked 35 with 2 pushes. So, with that said, let's get into this week's schedule.
Let's hop into the schedule. Like you said, we're treading water. I hold out hope that maybe we're just saving for a big finish here, but it should be fun. The push from last week, I want to give you props, and then I'll take 1 props. You correctly predicted 2 big games, Indiana over Nebraska, which, wow, a absolute demolition.
56-7. I didn't see that coming.
I don't know what to make of that. I think Indiana is good, but I also think Nebraska I might have overestimated Nebraska and the challenge they would give Indiana, because that one was not good. You also had a big hit on Colorado over Arizona last week. We'll talk more on Colorado. The big one that I hit was Notre Dame over Georgia Tech last week, but by and large, my predictions were kind of ho-hum. And then we pushed on the Auburn-Missouri game, which is kind of only fitting because that feels like Auburn won that game, but Missouri ends up winning and hits the 4 exactly, so they end up pushing, and we'll just live to fight another day. We didn't lose any money on that.
Exactly.
So we kick off the Wonder Slate. There are 2 other games tonight in addition to this one, but we're only focused on the big one. Number 17, Boise State and Ashton Genty will head to Vegas to take on the Runnin' Rebs. You can see it on CBS Sports Network. It kicks off at 9:30. Boise State, Mo, is favored by 3.5 in Vegas tonight.
I really want to take Vegas, especially as a home dog, but I just think that Ashton Genty might be too much for the Rebel defense to deal with. Give me Boise State to cover. I don't know that it's much more than 3.5, but give me the Broncos.
I'm taking Boise State as well. And a month ago, this was one that I had circled, and I was foaming at the mouth, ready to take UNLV to kind of stun Boise State. But Boise State just continues to play well. I mean, we talked about it. They almost beat Oregon earlier this year. They look like a really, really good team. They've got Genty rolling. It's going to be tough for UNLV to win this game tonight, let alone, I think, cover the spread. We're both taking Boise State in that one. Should be a fun Friday night game. Rolling into Saturday, we got an 11 a.m. kickoff. Oklahoma's got a new offensive coordinator. They're going back to Jackson Arnold at quarterback. And good luck, because you got to go to the Grove at Ole Miss. Does Ole Miss cover 20 points versus this new-look Oklahoma team?
Man, 20 points feels like a lot, but Oklahoma feels like they are really in flux at best. If Jackson Dart and that Rebel offense get it rolling, it could be 20 and then some. Give me Ole Miss, especially at home.
I'm taking Oklahoma just because I feel like Ole Miss has lost kind of their blowout luster, and this is too big of a number for me. I still think Oklahoma's defense is pretty decent, and maybe I'm just an optimist, and I'm thinking they'll get a little bump offensively from the weird quarterback carousel they got going on, but also the new play caller. I think Ole Miss wins by something like 17 and just sneaks under that number, so I think Oklahoma, I'm taking the Sooners in that one.
I will say I think that's a dangerous number for Brent Venables, because if Ole Miss does cover, it might get pretty warm in Norman for him.
Just got a new contract. How's your paper looking, Mr. Venables? Because you might not be getting checks actively if this keeps up. That rolls into a game that we didn't know we would be talking this much about, but we see Notre Dame playing Navy. The game will be played at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey at 11 a.m. on ABC. Notre Dame, Mo, is a 14-point favorite versus the Midshipmen.
I don't like Notre Dame to cover 14. I think they win the ball game, but give me Navy.
I want to take Navy, but I got to take I want to take Navy, and I don't want to take Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But I got to take Notre Dame. As great of a story Navy has been, you don't want to say this, but other than Memphis, they have really not played super challenging schedule. I think Notre Dame has enough juice to cover this number and win by, maybe 17. America's going to be rooting for Navy, obviously. And if this is one that I will not be disappointed if I'm wrong on, but I think Notre Dame does find a way to cover the 14. Moving into our 2:30 kickoffs. This should be a fun one. Number 20, Illinois is going to Oregon. This is a Big Ten matchup. Friend of the show and alumnus, Nate Bain will be in the house to watch his beloved Oregon Ducks. They are favored by 21.5. Do they have that number in them versus the Illini this weekend?
Man, we've talked about going across 2 time zones. Illinois won't be doing that coming out of the Central time zone going to Pacific, so they're only crossing 1. And I feel like that's going to be the difference. Illinois has played really well to this point, but I like Oregon to cover this number, especially with Nate Bain in the house.
You know, hopefully bringing the good vibes will be Mr. Nate, but I'm taking Oregon as well. Illinois is a good team, and I know this is going to sound like sour grapes because they just humbled my Wolverines, but I don't think they're certainly on the same level of Oregon, and I certainly don't think the road trip helps them. I like the Ducks. It feels like Oregon's still trying to put up style points, even though they don't need to, right? This is not the BCS anymore, but it feels like they're kind of walking around like they're trying to put up style points, and I think they cover the 21.5 versus the Illini this weekend.
Yeah.
Up next, another 2:30 kickoff can be seen on ESPN, This is the trap line of the century, Mo. Number 11, BYU. They're going to UCF, and UCF is favored by 2.5.
Yeah, I like BYU straight up in this one.
Taking the Cougs on the road. Vegas is trying to tell me something with this number, and I could look really silly. And I got love, as we mentioned, for my folks out in Utah. I got to take UCF. They got a really good running game, and it feels like something's up with this game. BYU might absolutely blow them out, but when Vegas tells me something weird like this, I kind of want to believe them. I'm taking UCF, and I'll just have to deal with the repercussions come Monday. Another 2:30 game. This one will be seen on ABC. Does number 21 Missouri cover 17.5 at number 15? Think about how weird that sounds. At number 15, Alabama.
Man, I am not comfortable taking Missouri to cover this, but I'm not comfortable with that number for Alabama, even in Tuscaloosa. I'm going to go with Drink and the Tigers in this one, but it's not a comfortable take here.
I'm taking Missouri as well. I don't think they win the game. And I don't think this is the South Carolina repeat. I got burned on Bama versus South Carolina. I got burned on Bama versus Tennessee. I'm done with Alabama. Let's just put it to you that way. I'm done with them for now. I can't pick them until they prove me wrong. I'm taking Missouri. I don't think they're really in contention to win the game ever.
Right.
But I don't think, 17.5 just feels like too much until Bama gets back on level heading there.
Yeah, I feel like Alabama by 10, 13, 14. Yeah, 17.5, 3 scores. I don't think so. Yeah.
No. I'm with you. We're in agreement on that one. Up next, this was a late switcheroo into the Wonder Slate. I meant to add it earlier. I don't know why I didn't. But 3:15 on West End over at First Bank Stadium on the SEC Network. Does Vanderbilt, ranked number 25 in the nation, cover the 21 points versus Texas?
21. A 21-point home dog. That's tough, man. That's almost disrespectful. I don't think Vanderbilt is going to win this ball game, but I do think they cover 3 touchdowns. Give me the Commodores.
I could go back and forth all day long, and I wish this was like 17. I'd be hammering Texas, but I think Vanderbilt playing at home. It feels like also Vanderbilt is not. I'm gonna look foolish saying this too, but it doesn't feel like Vanderbilt is really capable of getting blown out. It feels like they're just scrappy enough that even when they lose, They may lose by 20, and you still lose this bet if you take Texas. So I got to take Vanderbilt in this game.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. Big game here. This is the two SEC leaders in the clubhouse. LSU is number 8 in the land. They're taking on number 14 Texas A&M. It's basically a pick 'em. Texas A&M is technically favored by 1. Who do you like in this 6:30 showdown?
I like A&M in this one. Just on the basis of it being at Kyle Field, I think it's like Joe Rexrode was saying. If this was in Baton Rouge, I think I'd take LSU, but I'm taking the Aggies here.
I'm taking the Aggies too. They've come a long way since that loss to Notre Dame, and they're not great just yet. But LSU, I don't know what it is. I still got just a little concern about LSU. And again, like you said, being on the road, I like Texas A&M playing at home to win this game. I can't trust LSU just yet to win it. Up next, a real throwback, if you will. I mentioned Michigan State, how ugly that rivalry game could be. Number 6, Miami doesn't lose as a 21-point favorite to Florida State, right?
No, they don't. And, there is a time when this was appointment football right now. I mean, or when this was appointment football, it's not right now. I mean, I think Miami's fully capable of covering 21 against what is really a bad Florida State team. I'm going with the Hurricanes.
I'm taking Florida State just because Miami's been in some weird, odd ACC games. Who knows? Maybe all they needed was Florida State to come to town to get them right. I just feel like Florida State finds a way to make this ugly. And again, with this such a high number, give me the Noles, and I'll pout about it on Monday when they get blown out. I'm still just a little concerned about Miami. Final game of the night, Colorado. We've had fun having them on almost every slate this year because they're up and down, but they're rolling right now. They're favored by 6.5, a 9:15 kickoff. Stay up late to watch them versus Cincinnati. Do the Buffs, the Big 12 hopefuls, do they cover versus Cincinnati?
I think they do cover 6.5. I think this is about a touchdown, 10-point game. Travis Hunter is set to go on both sides of the ball for the Buffs, and I think this team is kind of riding something right now. I like Coach Prime and the Buffs in this one to cover.
I'm with you. I've been up and down on Colorado all year. They were a play or two away, it felt like, from just the season unraveling. They're also a play or two away from the season being almost perfect at this point.
Yeah.
So Colorado's got that vibe. They got that swag back, if you will. Folsom Field will be rocking at 9:15. Give me the Buffs. I'm like you. Win it maybe by 10 points versus Cincinnati to cap our Wonder Slate.
Yeah, there we go. That's going to do it for the Wonder Slate. Feel free to keep up and see how we do. That's going to do it for Main Street Sports today, the weekend update, as presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Me and Wade coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes, and look forward to doing at 2:00, where we talk about the weekend and everything that has transpired. So be sure and come back again Monday, 2:00. We will be here. We appreciate you. Have a great weekend. Hey, go see a high school football game tonight, and be sure and visit mainstreetpreps.com for all of your high school football coverage from Friday night. Again, we'll see y'all Monday.